Hello, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Urban's Take with Tim May. Urban, we've been doing this all season. It's like we've been sitting, canal side of the Suez Canal with these two tankers headed at each other. Are they really going to collide? Are they really going to be fully loaded when they hit each other? I'm talking about Michigan at Ohio State this weekend in the Horseshoe with everything on the line that you can put on the line for a Big Ten football team in this era. And man, it's finally upon us. Are you already starting to feel that tingle of days gone by?
Yeah, for me, it actually started earlier in the year. I've said this many times. This is not a big week. This is not a big game. This is a way of life, and so much on the line. I mean, you can't, back in 2006, I believe it was 1 versus 2, and then, we had a couple 2016 and 2018. A spot in the playoffs, Big Ten championship, and this is everything. And these two coaches, Ryan Day, who I'm very close with, and Jim Harbaugh, I got a lot of respect for. That you talk about pressure on both of them now. I mean, Ryan's got to win this game, and Jim Harbaugh's got to win this game. There's no and ifs or buts about it. That's the way it is.
Is that the way life should be?
It's not very healthy,
No.
but that's the way this rivalry should be. And that's, I used to tell people, and my gosh, the intensity of this preparation, and no one's forcing anyone to be here, but it is what it is. And for someone who makes it less than that, they really have no business talking about the rivalry.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that in a second. I mean, Big Noon Kickoff's going to be at Ohio Stadium again, right outside, I think, before the game starts, and then inside once the game gets going on Fox. And, you guys have kind of made a habit of being around Ohio State or Michigan for the most part this year, even though you have dabbled in the TCU, the TCU furor that's going on down in the Big 12. But how excited are you just to be at Ohio Stadium, to get to witness this firsthand again, if you follow my drift, because you roam those sidelines, 7-0 against the team up north, as you called it. But how exciting is it to actually be there?
Well, Big Noon Kickoff, it's become our home. And when I stepped away after the Rose Bowl game, they said, let's make this the Big Noon. And I was thinking, noon games aren't always the best, but the one thing about Big Noon Kickoff is the numbers have showed that that's the number one slot to watch college football, including prime time, including the 3:30 SEC game.
Yeah.
So the visionaries at Fox, Eric Shanks and Brad Zager, to be honest with you, when I first heard about it, I said, I'm not sure this is going to be that good. It's that good. And we're very Big Ten centric as far as our focus, but you have the Pac-12, you have the Big 12, but that's kind of our baby. And because of that, we get so knee deep with these teams. I called us the Wolverine Network there for a minute because for 4 weeks in a row, we were watching them, and that's a really good team, but we know that team. And then same with Ohio State, we've been there. So our staff and Jenny, Jenny's not going to be there, but Gus and Joel, they know this team. This is going to be a big time opportunity for a Big Noon Kickoff and the showcase. This will be it always is the most watched sporting event on television, other than high-end NFL games.
Good point. Speaking of that, the reason people are paying attention, as you pointed out a while ago, two great teams going at it. On a week like this, if you're Ryan Day, number one, and Jim Harbaugh and their staffs, but I'm just using them as the euphemism for those things. The more you watch video of an opponent like this, do you see weaknesses, or do you see things? Oh my goodness, I hope we can handle that. You know what I mean? It's probably a mix of both, but I would think which one lays on your mind more as the week develops?
Yeah, Sundays, it's pretty standard, or at least it was with me and my colleagues when I talk to them. Sunday, you're thinking, how can we move the ball against this team? How can we stop them? That's your initial reaction, especially good teams like both teams, Wolverines and Buckeyes. And I'm sure the Sunday reaction is, how do you cover these wideouts if you're the Wolverines? How do you control this run game for the Buckeyes? And as the week wears on a little bit, obviously you're so saturated and your mind is so, you start to develop obviously the game plan on Monday. That's a Mondays from 6 a.m. until 11 o'clock at night, straight through.
Yeah.
I used to joke around. You got a bunch of 50-year-old men staring at videotape for whatever, 15 hours. And then, it starts to materialize a little bit. And then obviously it's so dependent upon practice, at least my mind was, because the players are the ones doing the work. If you as a coach, it's not about contact anymore. I would take the pads off this week because, if you have a motivated team to hit the other opponent, then you're going to get crushed. It's not about that. It's about execution and work on this game plan.
Do you sleep at all? I mean, you used to tell me you usually got a good night's sleep because you probably exhausted yourself during the day. I'm not talking necessarily about this week, but I'm talking about during the course of most of the year. Now, good night's sleep for a head coach might be 4 hours, of solid not waking up. But if you're Ryan Day, if you're Jim Harbaugh, if we had cameras behind the scenes, would we see them? I don't know. You remember, everybody remembers the movie Remember the Titans when Denzel Washington understands he's got to win or else, and he's throwing up, before a game and stuff. Does it tighten you up that much from the preparation standpoint because you don't want to leave anything missed, right, as the week goes on? But you're going to miss something, right?
Well, it's all dependent upon the week of prep and your staff. When I was one of those people, if I had a pretty good feel, if I felt like our coaching staff was on it, I didn't sleep great, but I usually took a little something to help me sleep at night. But if I feel like we're not on it, I'm not sleeping at all.
Yeah.
You're just going to close your eyes. And I used to have this little sitting area by my bed that I'd get up in the middle of the night with a little light over there. And I would just, if I didn't feel, it's all about your staff. My goodness, if you got a great coaching staff, everyone's got to do their job. These players deserve to be prepared. Your players are going to give you effort. That's not the problem. Are you going to prepare them for those moments in this game? Moments that will last for the rest of your life. Yeah. That's, once again, I don't mean to tempt, and I get sometimes upset when people don't, oh, you're being over dramatic. No, you're not. You're not being over dramatic. And once again, you have no business being involved in this rivalry if it is reality is this thing follows you for the rest of your life, and it does.
Yeah. Did you win or lose the game? Is always going to come down. Because that puts you in line to win everything else you're going for. But you rarely ever get to that unless you take care of business in this game, as it's been proven. The other thing I want to ask you about preparation is do you have to be disciplined in the sense of, and I'm just, I'm throwing this out there because I was just thinking as you were talking there, don't overload guys. I mean, in other words, the players, not keep it simple, stupid, but keep it, don't go crazy with the things, throwing so much stuff at these guys. You know what I mean? It gets boggled up in their brains. They're trying to assimilate it.
Yeah. Lou Holtz used to always, whenever I would call for advice, I'd call Lou Holtz a lot, and he would always say, there's no cookie cutter way of doing this. It's not all the same. It's what kind of team do you have?
Yeah.
When you have a team that's a very mature team and, you have great leadership, the one thing you don't want to do is have this team be tight. If they're grown men that know how to prepare, do the job, get them out of there at a decent hour at night. Same thing with your coaching staff. The worst thing that can ever happen, and I'm certainly guilty of it at times, like we all are, you overwork people. And that's as bad as being underprepared.
Yeah.
And so there's a fine balance, and it depends on what kind of team you have. When I have JT Barrett, who is a grown man that knows the rivalry, that knows this, that spends hours upon hours upon hours on his own, then you got to be out of your mind to sit and wear a guy like that out. I can't speak to CJ Stroud, but I would imagine he's a grown man that's, obviously had a tough time in this game a year ago. He's going to be ready. So it's a fine line of preparation. I'm going to say it again. It goes back to your coaching staff. If you have a excellent coaching staff, which I was fortunate that I had excellent coaches. If you have an excellent coaching staff, your job as a head coach is not this week, during training camp, and that's a whole different animal. During this week, it's make sure they're fresh, make sure they're prepared, make sure they're on point. And that's, I just have the visual, almost the flashback, just walking around that practice field as practice is going on. And you can tell if we're on point. And if we're on point, then, good things usually happen.
Yeah, dude. We're talking about being on point in preparation. A, B, C, D, E. 2014, JT Barrett gets a broken ankle in that game, and a guy named Cardale Jones goes in at quarterback. Third string as the season started. 2017 up there, JT Barrett gets a knee injury, or gets it tweaked on the sideline by some photographer y'all still haven't tracked down, while he's warming up. And suddenly Dwayne Haskins Jr., rest in peace, goes into that game and saves it. All this preparation you did with that number one quarterback doesn't go out the window, because obviously those two guys were paying attention. Who knew Cardale Jones was paying attention, right? But great things came, especially from that 2014 game. But I would think on the sideline, when you see JT Barrett go down, you're going, oh my gosh, that's our quarterback. This is the guy that's gotten us here. And now all of a sudden, did Cardale study? Is he ready for this moment? Right? That's the curveball you deal with.
Yeah, and we call it competitive excellence. That's right from the great. This is great conversation. I don't want to bore anybody, but this is called competitive excellence. And John Wooden, the greatest basketball coach of all time, would call it competitive greatness. And basically, that's for the person listening. When your number's called, you make the play.
Yeah,
it's not because of a lucky T-shirt or the way you wear your socks. That those are that has no bearing on it. It's how you prep. And the backup quarterback, the backup linebacker, the backup lineman, we started it back years ago, but Kenny Guyton was the guy that took it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
He became the prototype. He would stand behind Braxton Miller because Braxton, the reps he could, and he would visualize and every play in practice, he'd stand 10 yards behind a quarterback. We'd clear out a space for him. So he was getting that rep. And you're exactly right. Yeah, you talk about the preparation of practice. But that backup right guard better be getting those mental reps every time. If not, he's going to jog into a game. And I remember Chase Ferris against Alabama, a backup right guard, didn't play much for us, but he was a really good worker.
Yeah.
Sure enough, Pat Elflein goes down, and Chase Ferris jogs on the field, and we score a touchdown. We lose that game if we don't do that. And those are the unsung heroes of games like this, that something will happen in this game. There's going to be some unknown that's going to go in a block a punt. A guy named Chris Olave did it in 2018.
Yeah.
Turned out to be, he scored 2 touchdowns and he blocked a punt. Before that, no one knew who Chris Olave was. But that tells you about, first of all, his position coach, Brian Hartline, getting him ready, but also the person, that person, that didn't just happen. That happened because of preparation.
Yeah.
Got me fired up.
Yeah.
Got me fired up, brother.
Who's going to be that guy this weekend, man? That's what's funny, because you don't get that answer, for example, Ohio State won up at Michigan in 2000, I think it was 9. And one of the guys who was signaling in the plays signaled in the wrong play, and it worked, and anyway, it was a mix up on the signal in of the plays. And I wrote a story about that young man just because, like when Art Schlichter ran the wrong direction with Von Broadnax in front of him, but that was the winning touchdown way back in 1980 or 1981. You never know, right? What's going to turn it? Hey, why didn't we think of that? Coaches say. Hey, real quick before we move on, we all know what Jim Harbaugh said. Many things were said by Harbaugh and his staff after that game last year when they finally beat Ohio State for the first time since 2011, since before you got there. That some guys are born on third base and think they hit a triple about your successor there, Ryan Day. How does that fuel a coach? I mean, you can act like Ryan. I even asked him about it yesterday, and others asked about some of the comments that were made by like Josh Gaddis about the team being soft, about the team not being physical, not toughness was lacking. Of course, Josh Gaddis isn't there anymore. But how does that stuff in the final analysis fuel a team? I mean, you don't want to admit it right now, but afterwards, it does play a part, doesn't it?
It eats away at your soul. If you're a competitive person, which these people are, that absolutely eats away at your soul. And, I'm not a big fan of, we've done our little things. We don't say the M word. We work on that all the time, but I would get very upset with, try not to, I don't want to attack any coach here. But,
yeah.
try to stay away from that, because the last thing you need to do, and it's once again for people to say that doesn't stoke the fire and make you work harder. They've never been in that situation, so absolutely that eats away at the Ohio State Buckeyes' soul right now. You start saying soft Ohio State, you start saying, about a coach. I've always tried to stay away from it. I haven't always stayed away from it, but I get it. And to answer your question, it eats away at your soul.
As we record this, Blake Corum seems to be at least question mark going into this game. Obviously the way he left that game last week, that come from behind win over Illinois, last minute field goal. Ohio State's situation at running back, you had the freshman Dallin Hayden go in there and relieve Trevion Henderson. Mayan Williams didn't even make the trip to Maryland. They were able to Dallin Hayden stepped up big time. I guess what I'm asking here is why will the team up north, as you call them, Michigan, why will Michigan win this game? And then give me a reason or two why Ohio State will win this game.
The history of the game is on really all big games, but obviously I've studied this game as much as anyone. That the line of scrimmage, the winning team will control the line of scrimmage. The Wolverines, that's their strength. Right now, offensive and defensive lines for 12 games, they've controlled the line of scrimmage. They've done an excellent job with that. Their center is a really good player on defensive line. They were kind of no names, and now they've become a really good defensive line. I do believe the Blake Corum factor will be huge in this game. That's how much respect. I've watched him up close.
Yeah,
he's not a good player. He's a great player. Yeah. He's the heart and soul of that team. And we met the player, and that'll be a detrimental. But whoever wins the line of scrimmage, I think the weather, from what I understand, is going to be in Ohio State's favor. The skill level on offense, I don't think it's close. I think Ohio State has the best skill in the country. If we can utilize that skill, if Ohio State can utilize that skill, I think Ohio State wins. If we can't, if Ohio State cannot, for weather or because the Wolverine defense negates that skill, the Wolverines will win. So two things. Number one is line of scrimmage. Last year, the Wolverines controlled both sides of the line of scrimmage. Historically, the last 10 years, Ohio State has. Whoever wins the line of scrimmage, and then will Ohio State be able to utilize the offensive skill that is unmatched right now in college football.
All right, let's jump ahead because there's other people watching this from around the country, and they want to know, wait, that's not the only game of the week. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is by far the biggest game of the week, right? Unless you're a USC fan. USC hosting Notre Dame. Notre Dame revitalized after that kind of shaky start, losing back-to-back to Ohio State and then Marshall. Marshall wearing those should have been wearing those green jerseys, but that would have looked funny in their road unis. But I digress. Notre Dame definitely has gotten his act together under Marcus Freeman. Still not as a flashy offense, but this game means so much more for USC than it did 8 or 10 weeks ago. It's amazing how USC has gotten it going out there, but at least on offense, defensively, oh my goodness, UCLA almost scored again. How do you see that one playing out, Urban? And obviously, USC is right there knocking on the door for a college football playoff invite if somebody slips.
Yeah, they got this tough game, and then obviously the Pac-12 championship game. But I was not a USC believer earlier in the year. I am now. I think Caleb is potentially the Heisman Trophy winner. It's him or CJ. Defense, Alex Grinch was on our staff, excellent coach. They're really struggling on defense, and they made a couple stops, but usually what happens when you start to get to this time of year, the inequated or the imbalanced teams disappear. That means a great offensive team, bad defense, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And the teams that survive and move forward are the good offense, good defensive teams. And USC, they have issues at linebacker. I have some inside knowledge just because of Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. They know their program so well. There's some issues on defensive personnel wise. And so I think what Marcus Freeman, I think he's a coach of the year candidate to rally them back the way he did, because they were dead and gone.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame is one of those places that they bury it. And he's brought him back. Really good coach, first time head coach. So I see this as a street fight. I just don't know if Notre Dame has the offensive power. I think USC is going to score and score a lot. I think they're that good on offense. Really good players, really good scheme. But I just don't know if Notre Dame has the firepower to stay in this game. offensively. So I pick USC just because of their offense.
Hey, right now, the latest college football playoff rankings for this week didn't change in the top 4. But my man, what in the hell happened to Tennessee? I mean, we were sitting here heaping praise on them, and rightfully so. And, you know, I'm not going to bring up bad memories for you, but you had a game or two like that at Ohio State where all of a sudden one day, one night, whatever, like at Purdue and Iowa back in the day, it just didn't work. You know what I mean? It didn't click, and the other team got hot with something you didn't see coming. I mean, you know, Iowa threw about 100 passes to his tight ends that one night, you know, and Purdue, the big windstorm came through the day, you know, like an hour before the game, et cetera. But what can happen to a team where all of a sudden it just gets flipped over sunny side up?
Oh, there's so many things. And there was also the time where Nick Bosa, you know, against Purdue, our team was just so fragile. On defense, really struggling. Nick Bosa, we were maybe come back, and he decided he wasn't, you know, and that because of that injury. So there are so many things play the game, or, you know, the mind game for teams. So I had Tennessee picked to be a college football playoff team, you know, but the one thing is those SEC teams, and really any team, you know, South Carolina's a good team, and they were really good that night. So you know, that's on the coaching staff, that's on the head coach and the group of assistants for some reason, you know, but that happens. And it almost happened at Maryland. It almost happened at against the Illinois.
The Big House. Yeah.
So, it's part of the game. And all kudos to South Carolina. Tennessee's out of the playoff hunt. And I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. And it was a shame to see Hendon Hooker, that quarterback, go down in that game. They weren't going to come back probably and win it, but the way when it happened. But wow, did that guy lay it on the line this year, right? And was fun to watch.
Great player, Heisman candidate. We studied him quite a bit. Actually, did some things on Big Noon Kickoff on him.
Yeah.
Devastating.
Hey, real quickly. So in the college football playoff rankings right now, who's that sneaky team that in 2 weeks could be sitting there with an invitation when the dust settles? And I'm going to lay one out there for you. This is what I like about the College Football Playoff Committee, that being a committee, and they're not looking just at records. And it may upset some people, I don't care, but LSU is playing pretty damn well right now with 2 losses. They're getting as much consideration pretty much as a couple of those one-loss teams. I think that's legitimate. I mean, from the standpoint of the way they've played, obviously the Arkansas game is, you know, but they won the game, right? I mean, just like Ohio State won at Maryland last week, just like Michigan was able to win on the last second against Illinois. But I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's one of the good things about having a committee pick this thing. They can look and see a team that's hot at the right time, can't they?
Yeah, that's what happened in 2014. That Buckeyes jumped 2 teams that, you know, we won 59-0 in the Big Ten championship game, went from 6th to 4th, and ended up winning it all. So they got a tough challenge, because I think there's 2 teams that have separated themselves as far as talent, and that's Georgia and Ohio State. Everyone else, you know, we've seen TCU. I thought TCU is a good team, but to start talking about playoffs, no, they're not good enough to be a playoff team. My opinion's changed over the last few weeks. What they did to Texas, and then at Baylor, you know, we were there. So they are certainly right there. And they're going to play Iowa State this week. So you have USC and TCU that they control their own destiny if they move along. And then how about the loser of this game coming up?
Yeah.
You know, the rivalry game, the Wolverines or Buckeyes lose, you know, are they better than a TCU or better than a one-loss USC? Those are tough conversations. I just don't know if there's enough juice. Unless there's major losses, I don't know if I see LSU popping in there, because I don't believe they can beat Georgia.
Yeah.
If they beat Georgia, they should go.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't beat Georgia, obviously that's a 3-loss team and they're out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I just don't see that happening. I see same thing with Alabama. Think about Alabama. Alabama's had 2 losses, one at LSU, one at Tennessee in the last seconds of the game. I'm saying any team in America, including Georgia, including Ohio State, including the Wolverines, they're not undefeated if they play that schedule.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
Well, that's too tough of a. Those are within 2 or 3 weeks. So tell me Alabama's not one of the top I know a lot of people get mad at me saying that because there's a lot of Alabama haters out there. Facts are facts.
Yeah.
And they are, they should be considered as well. Now, I think TCU and USC control their destiny. And the only thing that I can potentially see happening is this is a really hard fought game on Saturday. The losing team somehow bumps one of those teams out.
Yeah. And the thing about it is if LSU knocks off Georgia in the SEC championship game and Georgia takes care of business this week against Georgia Tech, and of course LSU's got Texas A&M this week, but boy, I think the nightmare scenario for the committee is LSU knocking off Georgia and Michigan squeaking by Ohio State, and you're sitting there with Georgia and Ohio State with one loss, you know what I mean? And you've got these others, but their one loss came in conference championship games against top 5 ranked teams. That's a lot of coffee to be going up to the committee through the night as they figure that one out, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the only question I have is I used to hear this and they're going to watch video. And I look who's on the committee, and you have commissioners, and I would say, what video are they watching?
Yeah.
And that'd be like me looking at, spreadsheets of IBM or something. What are you really looking at?
Yeah.
And what I would look at is the best, I always start with the line of scrimmage. The best line of scrimmage teams deserve to move forward. And like you said, this is going to be really intriguing what happens. If the world stays the way the world should be, it's not going to be that hard, I don't believe.
Yeah.
If there is chaos, Georgia losing, Ohio State losing, that's chaos.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Last thing, checkmate moment, ladies and gentlemen. I like this part because I'm sitting there. You guys were at the Baylor game. Big Noon Kickoff was. You got to witness this firsthand. TCU drives down, clock's ticking. They have no timeout left. I think that's correct. They run their offense off and run their special teams field goal kicking unit on. It looks so smooth the way that went down. And you had to be impressed by that, being a former national championship winning coach 3 times. You had to be impressed by that preparation part of it, right? Because it's almost forgotten in some realms about just getting that done in a correct way. But how impressed were you by the way they pulled that off?
Well, checkmate moments is something obviously every coach works on, and we would have a list, and I would always put a red mark by game ready. That means after so many reps when you feel that's ready. So every Thursday, most teams practice that. Here's an amazing stat, and I would always, next to the checkmate moments, I would say, how many times in our career has that happened? We called it Mayday field goal. Mayday was there's no timeouts left. It's 4th down. You can't down the ball, and you got to run on the field and kick the field goal. Everybody practices it. It looks chaotic. It's really not. However, you know how many times that's happened in my 38-year coaching career? 0.
Wow.
0. So you practice something, hundreds of times. But that's one of those moments that obviously TCU and Sonny Dykes and that team was so well prepared. I mean, we were all right there. They jogged on. The guy split the middle. Someone made a comment about the kicker not being ready. No, the kicker was ready.
Yeah.
He's practiced that thing hundreds of times. So once again, well done. That was a checkmate moment. I was a little leery when they ran the ball 2 times right in a row.
Yeah.
They ran the ball 2 times in a row, and it became panicky. I'm not sure it had to be, but once again, they did it. They won the game. Baylor, we're there. The students are ready to rush the field. It was over.
Yeah.
We were thinking, how do we get out of this mess in case they rush the field here? And then boom, the kid hits the field.
Yeah. That's what makes college football great, man. Every weekend, there's been something cool has happened. Sometimes 20 things cool has happened. Something cool is going to happen this weekend. Isn't that right, Urban?
Well, I don't know if you call it cool, but there's going to be one team celebrating and one team that's going to lick their wounds for 365 days, as Earl used to say. He'd say, you have to eat this for 365 days. And, this is really what it's all about, though. And once again, the respect I have for this rivalry and both sides of these teams that, and I made a comment about this coaching staff, both teams got to win.
Yeah. Wow. That's pressure, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Urban Meyer, until next week, we'll look through the dust and the smoke as it settles out next week, headed into conference championship games with another Urban's take. Urban, thanks for joining me again, my man.
All right, Tim, go Bucks.
And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you then.